Paul Brunton published a very famous book in 1934 called A Search in Secret India. It was very popular. It introduced yoga and meditation to the West in a form that they could digest. He became an authority on Eastern philosophies and gurus' meditation. His pivotal book on India came soon after Alexandra David-Neel had her very popular books on Tibet and Tibetan Buddhism. And his book came before Aldous Huxley's work on the perennial philosophy. In 1954, he retreated from public life to write on highly contemplative themes, and he wanted to develop an advanced mystical perennial philosophy. He was 30 when he made the long trip to India by boat, train, ox cart. He went as a skeptical journalist. He had to follow leads to various places and ask where to find holy men, and then he interviewed them as soon as he met them. The challenge was that India was full of holy men, yogis, but there were snake charmers, there were magicians, tricksters, there were yogis who practiced extreme austerities to gain merit in this life, but they were not holy men that wanted to lead anybody. The serious holy men, what you could call the deep sacred India, dwelled out of sight. They preferred to live apart from the world. Some of them lived in caves. They lived in seclusion. They spent days in deep trance. They did not seek out followers. You had to find them. But in India, there was a strong tradition of the guru, that someone on a spiritual quest would benefit from having a master. What excited his readers about this book? What was new at that time? He described prophecies that he heard and clairvoyance. A number of times, holy men told him about his future. They predicted his future. And you can stop the slide and read some of the details, but he had several times people said, this is what's going to happen to you. He discovered astrology as a science. He was very skeptical and even disdainful. An astrologer told him things that no one else could know and explained the relationship between astrology and the concept of reincarnation. He experienced a lot of synchronicities, coincidences, things by chance. He would meet people, they would tell him something, and they would redirect him. He would jump on a train and go off somewhere else. He also described telepathy, that many of the holy men could communicate with each other and with their followers without speaking, locally and remotely. The holy men described travel out of body. A yogi could appear in a remote location temporarily, and there were witnesses to say, yes, that was true. He showed up here and he's gone now. He also described that there were spirit guides, that there are spirits who can appear, who can give you messages and guide you. In fact, he had personally had a vision of a yogi who appeared in his room. And he described a lot of the yogic powers that people exhibited or described. Yogis in deep trance could make their pulse stop. They could make their heart stop beating. They could stop bleeding. They could even appear dead for a while. But most important, he brought back the idea of yoga, of body control, and the postures of yoga and the ideas behind yoga, that the body has nerve centers scattered through the body, which is other people call the chakra system, and that the body control, the poses could improve, refine, enhance the energy in the body. And so he actually described several poses as well. He also brought back a strong idea of meditation. He describes in detail his own meditation. So you don't see that before that, where he's actually tells you what happened to him when he meditated. And he's talking about sacred trance and how he tells you the process, which was new. He also brought back a different notion of the purpose of life. He said the purpose of life is to attain spiritual perfection, to reflect on the nature of yourself through meditation, and to realize the true nature of things. He also reinforced the theory of energy in the body and in things, and that could be that there's auras in the body, that we influence each other, our energy influences each other, everything, and also objects that have contact with a person can carry some of that person. For example, he said the cook who prepares your food can throw her influence into it unconsciously. When he started out, he had serious doubts. He said, the cold serpents of doubts have firmly coiled themselves around my mind. He said, I'm a pilgrim without a God, a wanderer, and finding nothing. He was very discouraged, and I think nearly a year of this journey, nothing had happened. He said, no memorable inner experience has occurred. He's had no soul upheaving vision of life's secret meeting. And he said, perhaps he's not worthy, and he was very discouraged. But then it happened. And he said he had an overwhelming experience. He did have that soul upheaving vision of life's secret meeting, and that launched him in his later pursuits. Another thing he found out, which was bothering him, was that a normal life and spiritual life can work in harmony. And he met somebody who worked in the world and could participate in the world, but also practice yoga and meditation, that you did not have to retreat to a cave in order to achieve some of the yogic insights and the mystical experiences. And another revelation he had along the way, he actually went to the movies, and he said life itself is nothing more than a cinema play. And that's sort of the idea of reincarnation, that you come into this life and it has a scenario, and there's meaning behind the scenario. Where did he begin? Up to the age of 30, he was primed for his trip to India. He was already a vegetarian. He was already a meditator. He had already had mystical ecstasies. He either worked in or owned an occult bookstore. He discovered the idea of reincarnation, so that wasn't new to him. He went to meetings of the Theosophical Society, and he hung out with the British intellectuals who were interested in the occult, the paranormal, mysticism of the Far East. His family did have a background in Christian Science, which holds a theory of healing energy in the body, and that the body has the ability to heal itself. He ended up writing 11 books, translated into 20 languages, and you see that he went from India, he traveled then in the Himalayas, he traveled to Egypt, and then he went into the philosophical studies and writings. There's a very rich website maintained by the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation. It has videos, it has resources, it had books, learning curricula. So it's perpetuating his work and making it available to everyone. He did fulfill one of the prophecies he heard in India, which is, you will not limit yourself to yoga alone. You will become versed in other mystic philosophies. So after India and the Himalayas and Egypt, he focused on modernizing the perennial philosophy for the West. So his final years were immersed in philosophy and epistemology, metaphysics, and his notebooks were published posthumously.